And we are live. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Forever Red Devils. This is your latest Manchester United news and discussions. And a lot to talk about this morning with apparently a bit of a potential player revolt starting to brew back behind the change rooms. We've been here before, haven't we? We've heard it all before. And unfortunately, looks like we could be seeing it all over again. We'll also be talking about INEOS and maybe not being the owners we thought they'd crack up to be under a lot of pressure on the back of announcing further budget cuts, which could see further members of staff losing their jobs. And interesting to see, for example, what the reaction is going to be from the season ticket holders, which I've actually been hearing a lot of very worrying stories a couple of times about some of the season ticket holders and the way they've been treated recently. And all points to a club in pretty disarray, and definitely not a club at the moment which is very much feeling like it belongs to the fans, that it's for the fans. And the fans are at sort of the centerpiece of what makes the club special. So very worrying signs. I'm going to get into it a little bit and talk a little bit about a couple of the main things, and then have a look at exactly what we could potentially be looking at in the summer. Talking about news about Victor Lindelof and the potential role he might play in the rest of the season before his contract runs out, given that he's back to full fitness. And a player who I think his career is kind of sort of whistled out really, and kind of just faded away. A very good player, and I don't think we ever really got the best of him. We had some good seasons of him, but I think that we never managed to get him into the team consistently enough to see the type of player he probably could have become. And I think in a different situation, different environment, different manager, he could have been a lot better than the player he's going to having been. So but let's get into it, shall we? And we're going to start with the rumor that some players are apparently losing faith in Ruben Amorim. So a article came out yesterday and from the Express, and it basically said that apparently some Manchester United players have voiced concerns amongst one another over the system that Ruben Amorim is attempting to play at Manchester United, and starting to believe that we're not going to get anywhere whilst we continue to play like this. And once again, we're sort of sitting in a situation with players now supposedly questioning a manager's tactics and losing faith in a manager. And at the end of the day, the players need to start shaping up or shipping off. We cannot be sitting here once again in a situation where we've got players questioning a manager. How many managers we're going to go through before we start realizing the players are the biggest issue at the moment? And I think at the moment it's kind of getting to a situation where you either need to fall in line or leave. And nobody needs to be is untouchable. I think this is the big thing. If you're not going to buy into the vision, if you're not going to knuckle down and get your ass into gear and get going and start working hard to try and get us back to where we need to be, even back to just being in the top 10, top 6 type of thing, then you don't have a place at Manchester United. At the end of the day, the standards have slipped dramatically in the past 10 years, and the only way we can fix those standards is if we start demanding more of players and start getting rid of the players that aren't willing to buy into the vision and aren't willing to do what it takes to become a Manchester United player. You look, for example, over the weekend, and I was watching Liverpool versus Plymouth, and the fight the Plymouth players had. They were leaving everything out there, fighting tooth and nail for every single challenge, every single save, every single half moment to try and get that result. And I sat there wondering, when was the last time I saw a United team fight like that? A United team with so much passion, so much desire, where even though they're not the top team, there's just throughout the entire 90 minutes, there's that desire and that hunger to get a victory. Not to say that we haven't seen that in patches, when we had, the comeback against City and the likes of that, but that full 90 minutes worth of fight. And that's what's missing at United. We've got no ambition, no sort of culture in the squad where as soon as you go out, every single 90 minutes, we are fighting for every ball. We are fighting for every sort of moment to get results, to make sure that we are winning every single game. We're trying to win every single game. And it just shows you that the complacency that's developed within the squad. And then you start listening to rumors like this, where according to Mail Sports, some of the players have discussed whether he needs to tweak the ambition. And that's when we start to really go down the rabbit hole. If you've got start players who are going to start questioning the tactics, start questioning the formation, then that's where things start to go really, really out of shape. Because then you've got players who are doubting the manager, they're doubting the assistant coaches, doubting the system. And if you start doubting that, when you start playing, that's going to manifest. You know, even if it's on a subconscious level, if you don't have full faith in what you're doing and full faith in what the team is doing, you cannot expect to get good performances on the pitch. You cannot expect, to deliver the type of quality and the type of dedication and the performances that are required to get us back on track. So, again, if this really is starting to happen, any players who I think have any doubts, any players who are talking with them amongst themselves and starting to sort of doubt the system like that after 2-3 months, as far as I'm concerned, can leave the club, because we can't have this. We cannot have more player power coming in and a manager being ousted and eventually getting the sack because players sit there believing that they've got the power to dictate what system we're going to play, how we're going to play. If we're going to if we're going to really perform for this manager, we're not going to perform. You've got to get players on board, and if they're not, then you've got to be willing to show players the door. Player power needs to be taken control of. We've got to reduce the amount of player power. Not to say you got to just basically move back into a sort of tyrannical reign type of thing with the manager. Nobody's going to get that extreme. But at the end of the day, the club has decided this is the manager. This is the person that's going to get us back on track. This is how he wants to play. This is how he's going to do it. Your job is to fall in line, play for that manager, and make sure you are never, ever the problem. And I can't understand the attitude. Yes, you're doing badly. Yes, you're getting a lot of criticism. But how can you want to basically be part of the problem? Because that's what you're doing. If you're not backing the manager, if you're not giving your all, and if you're doubting them, you are part of the problem. The best thing you can do, even especially when you're playing in a poor team, is to go out and to perform the best of your abilities, to go out and try and score goals for so many different reasons. First of all, your performances are going to help the team. There's no doubt about that. It's going to help the team. Your performances are going to make sure that people don't look at you as being part of the problem. And if you're unhappy at United, and if you want to potentially leave, you want to move clubs, you want to get out of there, you need good performances in order to find yourselves a better move. Otherwise, you're going to find yourself going to a smaller club, which could ironically be higher than United at the moment, but a club with less prestige, a club that's going to pay you a lot less, and your career is going to stall. So the best thing you can do, even though you don't potentially like the system, is put your head down, shut up for once, and start playing football. And start showing that you're not part of the problem. And we've seen some players who really have done that. And they're paying dividends. Amad, for example, you can just see he's just trying to play whenever he can. As soon as he gets the ball, he's trying to create something. He's trying to make something happen. He's a player who's just putting it all out there. And look at the season he's having. Man Utd, I think, strikes me as a player like that. He's just going to run. He'll run for the manager. He'll do whatever he needs. Harry Maguire, somebody like that. He's adapting to the system. And you've got players who are willing to really buy in. And we're seeing the form. Alejandro Garnacho, for example, maybe not being as useful starting up front, but when he's come off the bench, has looked really, really bright in the last sort of month or two. And you can see he's a player who had to really go back, do a little bit of introspective thinking, go and decide what he wants to do. And he's decided he's going to work hard. He's going to get himself back on the side, and he's going to start committing to Amorim and the system. And we're starting to see the dividends. We're still not seeing the performances and the numbers that we saw last season, for example. We're definitely seeing a better Garnacho this year than we were towards the end of last year. And, he's responded really well to being dropped and to being told you need to change things and maybe you're not quite good enough in these sort of areas right now. And he's now playing in a system which doesn't play to his strength. It really doesn't. He's a player who's an outside winger. He wants to be hugging that touchline, cutting in, getting shots like that, getting himself into the box. So he's not a player who naturally falls into this formation. And yet, he's starting to make it work because he's willing to work hard, because he's willing to try and improve himself. And if he can do it, there's no excuse for anybody else to be able to do it. I think that's the big thing at the moment. You've got no excuse. You've run out of excuses. You've chased how many managers out the door before, and you've managed to sit there on your fat salary and you're on ridiculous wages, whilst managers come and go, and you sit there and thinking you're not part of the problem. You are part of the problem. And if you're going to be part of the problem, we'll show you the door and off you go, because we can't have players like that who are not involved and all in on the project. You can see teams in the past, even smaller teams, when they go on those big runs and they go on cup runs, or they go on that, amazing one season sort of wonder, Villa now in the Champions League going all in. You can see teams where players are just have bought into the system. And that's how you get players like Chris Wood having the season he's having at Nottingham. He's a player who's bought in, he works hard, and all of a sudden you're starting to see the best of him. And there's a reason why Chris Wood is sitting with the numbers he has, and we can't get Rasmus Højlund to score goals. It's like and that's because of a lack of buy-in and a lack of alignment across the squad to really be able to get the best out of all our different players. I'm not saying Rasmus Højlund is, the sole to blame for his current form. I think as a team, we've just been really, really poor lately. And unfortunately, Ruben Amorim, so unfortunately some of the players, Ruben Amorim's there, and he's going to be there for the end of the season. He's going to be there at the end of next season. So option A is to bitch and moan and not fall in line. Option B is to actually just put your head down, work hard to the end of the season, and see what happens. And if formation's still not working and things still aren't aligning and stuff like that, and you feel you need to leave, then you can go. If things really start clicking, then all of a sudden you start getting excited again. You start thinking, well, maybe actually this is going to work. Maybe we are going to be able to get results and potentially compete for titles and the likes of that. Under Ruben Amorim, maybe that is going to potentially start happening. But the only way it's going to happen is if you put your head down and you start becoming part of the solution and not start of the problem. Now, speaking of problems, not good news in terms of the INEOS, cost-cutting system. So, Jim Ratcliffe was trying to save, I think, something like £45 million that he's, sort of been saving in the last sort of year since sort of taking over in terms of cost-cutting. And United are apparently set to fire or up to 200 more staff in the latest sort of cost-cutting move. What's quite interesting is apparently Manchester City currently employs almost half the amount of employees that Manchester United do, which shows you it's two things. First of all, I think United is potentially a bigger club, inverted commas, and probably more historical, have had a bigger staff and the likes of that. But it also shows you the inefficiency. It should never be taking United twice as many staff to be able to run a club like United when you've then got City, who've got women's sides, got youth sides, the likes of that, operating very, very well, by the way, and with half the staff. So, it makes sense to a certain degree that that we do need to probably maybe try and get more sort of align and try and really sort of streamline things at United to try and make it a bit more better, but at the end of the day, that's not going to buy you favor. And we've already seen, protests from the Football Supporters Association talking about the fact that they're exploiting the loyalty of United fans because the cost-cutting effects have been very, very hectic. First of all, they cut jobs last year. They're looking to cut jobs more again this year. And, a lot of the benefits of the workers have been taken away. You look at the fact that they made 250 jobs redundant last year. They cut bonuses for Manchester United staff, and apparently after, from £100 bonus, they were all getting down to like a £40 voucher or whatever it was. They, they removed the sort of Alex Ferguson ambassador role, for example. That's going to save a few million. They cut apparently they cut donations that they give to certain funds and the likes of that. They also, they used to give staff a trip down to watch United in the FA Cup final. They didn't do that last year, and Bruno Fernandes had to do that. So it's a massive give and take situation because we have to be very realistic about the fact that we need to start cost cutting. We need to try and make the club far more viable and far more profitable. The problem at the moment is for who and for why? Because at the moment, we all know that at the moment, we make the club more profitable just so the Glazers take more money out. It's not like we're making, we're sitting under a facade of thinking that all these cost-cutting measures are coming so that we can sort of fund, more transfers and a better women's side and better structures and infrastructure in the club. But we just don't have the faith in the owners. We don't believe that all this cost-cutting and stuff like that is going to be sort of reinvested back in the club, because you're now going to sit there with all these cost-cutting measures and saving all this money. And then we're going to see bigger dividends being brought up by a bunch of owners who just don't care about the club. Until the Glazers are out, INEOS is always going to have a bit of a stain next to their name because at the moment they're just funding the Glazers' profits and the money that they take out of the club. And at the moment, we're yet to see anything which has really made us sit up and go, actually, you know what, INEOS are doing a fantastic job. They're currently being sued, by the way, by New Zealand Rugby for not paying their sponsorship. So we've now got owners who are in a court case where they're not, paying their sponsorship. They're now cost-cutting and making more redundancies, getting rid of more staff, showing no loyalty to the staff that have been going in the last, few years, and the last keeping a club going. they're still in bed with the Glazers, where they're going to take more dividends out, they're going to take more money out of the club, and we didn't see Ruben Amorim get backed in the January transfer window. Pep Guardiola, by the way, once again getting some big signings in, and the likes of that. And we sit with a team that's not good enough, a squad that lacks quality, a manager that hasn't been backed. We're spending all this money sacking different managers because they can't decide a decent sort of plan for the club, and it's a complete joke. So, the excitement of getting Sir Jim Ratcliffe and INEOS was great for the first few months, but we've yet to see anything that really makes us go, yes, this is actually the right owners. Yes, this is really positive. And until I start to see that, I'm always going to continue to be very apprehensive, because I think that we were sort of very starry-eyed by the fact that we have new owners, and yet we've not seen them prove to us that they're any better so far and that they're going to take us forward. But yeah, hello to Aslan. Just seen your comment, mates. I hope you're well. Checking in over here. Let me know what you guys think of the whole INEOS situation as we sort of wrap up, because I personally remain very unconvinced. And this is the problem. I remain consistently convinced about most things at United. I'm not convinced we've had much. We really care about our women's team. When you look at the amount of sort of the players that come in and go, and our lack of being able to retain our best players, or even a few years ago having a full squad. You look at the stadium, and it's an absolute joke. And yes, cool, you buy a fancy new stadium. That's going to put us into debt for however many years. I don't look at our recruitment policy and think, cool, that's really starting to get better. We are starting to recruit some absolute quality players at good prices. I don't even look at the manager at the moment and get full confidence that he is the right manager necessarily to take us forward. And I'm not saying we need to sack Ruben Amorim, but there's nothing so far which has made us really go, oh, yes, we made the right decision. We've got the right manager. We're really moving forward. And it just shows you how broken the club is. It's not just a simple fix. It's so much more than a new manager. It's so much more than new owners and a new director of football. We brought in people that have come in and then gone off very, very quickly, and things have not worked. And we've already had fallouts between CEOs and director of footballs and director of development and all this kind of thing. And we've all these fancy different roles, but nobody seems to be aligned and with the vision. No one seems to be united with what we need to do. So at the moment, it's very much Manchester, non-united, really, to be honest, because it's just you don't get the feeling anywhere that something is working really well. Can't point to a single part of the club where I think that's working really well, apart from the merchandising, where they continue to absolutely print money, because Adidas does make very nice shirts and kits and the likes of that. But apart from that, it's just you struggle to find the positive. Yossi, I feel like one or two big shock transfers might help move Ruben's culture. I still have faith in them, but yeah, it's more than just the coach. Internals need to regroup before the year keeps. Yeah, I think this summer's everything, isn't it? My entire opinion of INEOS is going to rest on what we do in the summer. And that's for both incomings and outgoings. If you're going to bring in one or two big players, talk to us about Harry Kane, that is a sign of intent. Going and getting somebody like that, people suddenly start to go, right, okay, we're actually serious again. We're a serious club again. You go and get one or two, as you said, big transfers, and you try and get some of those really important deals, along with a couple of very good deals as well, and then you get some outgoings and you make big calls. You have a proper pre-season, then we go next season. You do that, and you could start to win back the trust of the fans. But at the moment, I don't feel that fans trust INEOS and trust our owners to be able to get anything done. The fact that Glazers are still there plays a big role in that, but I also think that INEOS have not done anything that has made the fans, fall in love with them or gain their trust. And in fact, I was actually reading some very worrying stories yesterday on Reddit that the one person that lost their season ticket, because they were told that they had handed their season ticket to somebody else for the game, and had to go through a whole ombudsman and a whole process to try and prove that they hadn't, and that they actually attended the game in question, and yet still lost their season ticket. And somebody else was given a warning or fine, basically, because they gave their season ticket to a family member rather than reselling it back into the club. Because why do we want somebody else to join United for the ticket you already paid for, when you can sell it back and make another 80, 90 quid? It's that simple. So everything at the moment is completely money driven, cost saving driven, which is fine as long as you see the reinvestment back into the club. But we're not seeing that. We're not suddenly seeing £45 million saved. So all of a sudden we've got a 45 million extra in the transfer budget. And I know it doesn't work like that, with the whole financial fair play and the regulations these days. It's far more regulated than that stuff like that. And we have to become more profitable to be able to allow us to use the funds injected to the club to actually go and buy players. But you just don't get the sense at the moment that the money's going to the right place and that the money's being saved for the right reasons. Josh then saying, unless they come out with some surprises going downhill already, hate to see it. Agreed. You know, we're sitting a year on, and I feel less, or at very least the most, the same kind of level of confidence that we're moving forward as a club out of the year. In fact, I probably feel less, to be honest. I think last year, even with Erik ten Hag, it wasn't the best season, you know, but I think at this stage last year, I probably still felt more confident that we were kind of still semi-moving forward than I do right now. And that's saying something, because we weren't great last season at all. But that's the reality of where we are as a club. And as Yosu says, hate to bloody see it. But that's going to be enough for us. We're going to wrap up. I've gone the same sort of tangent for hours, really. But we're going to wrap up. We're going to do a bit of a loan watch a bit later, checking in. So with some very impressive performances from Anthony. The Marcus Rashford situation, looking at Vitek, our goalkeeper, having a very good time in the Austrian League as well. So we'll do a bit of a loan check-in later. So keep an eye out for that video. And then we'll be live once again tomorrow at 9 a.m. UK time. So join us, get your comments in. Thank you very much, Yossi, for joining in. It's always nice when you have someone to chat to in the chat. So make sure you come and join us tomorrow. Please do smash the like on the video. Please do subscribe to the channel as well. Thanks very much for watching.